All right, this is Shiloh Season, Chapter 2. Mrs. Talbot's new to our school this year, and I've got her for 6th grade. She's young, younger than Ma, but she's got the same kind of cheekbones up high on her face. Wears her hair the same too, pulled back on top and fixed with a barrette, then hanging loose around her shoulders. David Howard and I sit next to each other. Miss Talbot said we could sit where we liked, but it was up to us whether or not she'd let us stay there. Just a polite way of saying that if we cause any trouble, she'll change our seats, faster than you can spend a nickel. Since she didn't know any of our names yet that first day, she asked each of us to tell her something about ourselves, and you wouldn't believe what some of the kids thought to tell. Sarah Peters told how she fell off a swing last year and broke a tooth. Now, who do you figure cares about that? Tooth's been fixed. Ain't nothing to see. Fred Niles said they've got a new baby sister at his house, which wasn't exactly the biggest news in the world, 'cause he's got 5 sisters already. Then David Howard told how his family flew to Denver the last week of August, and Denver's called the Mile High City because the state capital's a mile up in the air. Only nobody believed him. So Miss Talbot got out the encyclopedia and showed us he was right. Then she told us something else we didn't know. There's a Denver, West Virginia, too. In fact, 2 Denvers, one in Preston County and one in Marshall. Miss Talbot's sister lives in one of them, she said. When it was my turn that day, I told about Shiloh and how I worked 2 weeks to make him mine. And then Michael Schultz told how there was this junk man who drove by their house sometimes and once even knocked over their mailbox. Everyone started whispering then. And the whisper went around the room. Judd, Judd, Judd. It went one person to the next. Miss Talbot didn't know who Judd was. Somebody's father, maybe? So she just said she hoped that whoever this person was, he wouldn't get it in his head to drive the next time he was drinking, 'cause he might run over a child or a little dog. And since I was the only one who had told about a dog, she looked right at me, and it didn't make me feel one bit better about leaving Shiloh alone all day. There's times I wish we could just keep Shiloh in the house while I'm at school. But Ma says when you love someone, you don't keep him locked up. Not a dog like Shiloh who likes to run. When you love, you got to take chances. Every day when school lets out at Sistersville, the bus rolls alongside the Ohio River till it gets to Friendly, then turns and winds up the road toward the little community of Shiloh, which is where I found my dog, which is why I named him what I did. One by one, sometimes 2 and 3 at a time, kids get off. David, of course, gets off in Friendly. Then Sarah and a few of the others. Then Michael, then Fred, till at last it's only Dara Lynn and me. The bus goes as far as the old mill and turns around. And always there's Shiloh, barreling down the driveway to meet us. His legs can hardly go any faster. Skids sometimes, whole body leaning sideways, gravel flying out from under his paws. But he's standing there with his tongue out the minute Dara Lynn and me step off that bus, ready to lick us up one side of our faces and down the other. I love this dog more than I ever loved anything in my whole life, I think, except Ma and Dad, and Becky, and, well, I suppose even Dara Lynn. One night I dreamed Judd Travers come to me with his shotgun, said he was going to shoot either Shiloh or Dara Lynn. Which would it be? And I woke up in a cold sweat, still couldn't decide. Suppose I'd save Dara Lynn if it ever come to that. But boy, she'd have to work the rest of her life trying to make it up to me. I get out at the scrap of sandwich I always save in my lunch bucket and make a game of it with Shiloh. Take it out, cupped it in my hands, then lie down in the grass, hands under my chest. Shiloh tries every which way to roll me over and get at that crust of bread, little sliver of ham still stuck to it. After he gets it, though, Dara Lynn has to go through her hugging business, and Shiloh puts up with that, too. How's "How's my widow Shiloh, Bilo, Wilo?" she sings, picking him up in her arms like a baby. He washes her face clean with his tongue, especially the corners of her mouth, where there's still the flavor of lunch. Too disgusting to watch, you want the truth. So I go on up to the house and Dara Lynn comes after. On this day, Becky's on the porch swing playing airplane or boat, either one. Looks maybe like she's playing boat, 'cause she's got a string hanging down over the side like she's fishing. When I get in the house, Ma's on the phone with Dad's sister over in Clarksburg. First time we've had a telephone in 3 years. Ever since Grandma Preston's mind started to go, Aunt Hetty had to have a nurse come in while she was at work to watch Grandma all the time. It was Dad who paid for that nurse, every spare cent we had. Last month, though, Grandma Preston had a stroke. And what little sense she had left all but went. Not only that, but her kidneys failed. Got a bad hip, so she can't get in and out of bed no more by herself. And Aunt Hetty was up half the night with her, still trying to work days. Your mother needs more care than you can give her, the doctor says finally to Aunt Hetty. So Dad drove down, and he and Aunt Hetty put Grandma in a nursing home. Weird thing is, though, long as we're all trying to care for Grandma Preston ourselves, Aunt Hetty doing the work and Dad sending the money, we didn't get any help. Now that Grandma Preston's in a nursing home, not 1 penny to her name, the government pays for the nursing home, and Dad says we can afford a telephone again. And a few other things we've had to do without. Dara Lynn and I sit at the table, taking turns, easing our hands into a box of graham crackers and listening to Ma. She did, Hetty? Oh, land, what next? Ma's saying. Becky comes in and we give her a cracker. But soon as Ma's off the phone, I say, "What happened?" Ma shakes her head. "I want the 3 of you to promise that I ever get to acting crazy, you'll remember me the way I am now." Dara Lynn gets this gleam in her eye. "I'll remember you acting crazy," she says. "What'd Grandma do?" I ask. "How much trouble can she get into when she's in a wheelchair?" Ma sighs. "She's been wheeling herself into other people's rooms uninvited. Men's rooms. She's got it in her head that Grandma Preston's still alive, and they're hiding him somewhere." Becky stares, but Dara Lynn laughs out loud, and it's all I can do not to grin. Aunt Hetty's afraid if Grandma don't behave herself, they'll put her out. But those nurses know what to do. They understand. Nice thing about a telephone is it helps you make plans. Before, when I wanted to say something to David Howard, I'd have to give the message to Dad, and Dad would tell it to David when he put the mail in their box. Then I'd have to wait all day for Dad to get home to find out what David said. Now, when the phone rings, everybody wants to answer. Becky, when she gets there first, she puts her mouth right up to the phone and says in this tiny little voice, "Hi, I'm Becky, and I'm 3 years old, and I have a dog." Something like that. You almost have to sit on her to wrestle that telephone out of her hand. The phone rings again and I answer. It's David. "Why don't you stay at my house Friday night and I'll stay at yours Saturday?" he says. I ask Ma. She says yes if I be sure my socks and underwear are clean. So Friday of that week, I put my toothbrush in my pencil case before I leave for school. And when Shiloh follows Dara Lynn and me down to the end of the driveway, I'm thinking how when the bus gets back that afternoon, I'm not going to be on it. I kneel down in the grass beside my dog. "Listen, Shiloh," I say. "I'm not coming back tonight. I'm staying over with David Howard. But I'll be home tomorrow, okay?" As though he understands a single word. I'm thinking that maybe he understands something's going to be different, even though he don't know what. The bus comes then around the bend, and Shiloh barks and backs away. He don't much care for the big yellow monster that gobbles us up weekday mornings and spits us out again each afternoon. After I get on the bus and turns around, I always go to the back window and look out. See Shiloh trotting up the driveway, tail between his legs. He stops every so often and looks back, then goes a few more steps. And I'm thinking that much as I like David Howard, much as I like going to his house, I sure don't like the thought of me being gone a whole night. Shiloh at home without me, and Judd Travers, maybe, out there in the dark.